Yes, people. Good evening. Good evening. Hope everyone is doing well today, wherever you are. If you're listening right now on the playback, please make sure that you do like the stream, share, subscribe if you are new. Thank you for being here, taking time out from your busy day, busy evening, whatever you got going on. Thank you for taking time out if you are listening. I do appreciate each and every one of you, even though I don't say it often enough, but I want to say I really, really do. And yeah, today we're gonna today we're gonna get into a bit of a topic because the spring is here and sunshine is out and all this kind of other stuff. It's just yeah, things are going crazy, but damn. um we need to talk about this topic. There's an issue which I really wanted to talk about. It's something which I think, I don't know, i, I think for me it's going a little bit under the radar with everything that's going on. We say what's up to people in the chat. I can see Skittles Man Reloaded. What's up, bro? How you doing this evening? Hope you're doing well. um Wow. Yeah. Yeah. And that was that flipping out. That situation has dominated the headlines for the last couple of days. And yeah. Enough said, I think. Enough said on that. I mean, I'm not covered it and I'm not covering it because, well, there's a couple of issues why I'm not covering it, but now I've seen other people cover that whole situation from so many multiple angles and so many multiple things to unpack, if you like, and unwind. And so yeah, how about it? It's been giving people a lot of ammunition, is giving people a lot of meat, it's giving a lot of people a lot of views. So it is what it is. It is what it is. So yeah, but once we get back into the real world, once we get into the situation that affects us as a people, because this is exactly what I wanted to get into today. Because at the end of the day, all that stuff is all good for the drama, and even still, it's up for debate as to whether that ish was even real or not. But once we step back from that drama and we step into the lives of the ordinary folk, because at the end of the day, regardless of what you want to say about that situation, there's one thing which I will say, which I want to say we're all going to agree on. They will live lives that you and I will probably never ever see in our lifetime. So while you guys want to criticize each side, whether you're Will side, Chris Rock side, Jada side, whatever side, I don't really care. Just know this: they are rich, they are powerful, they are famous. When it's all said and done, they're going back home to their lovely houses, their lovely cars, they're enjoying lives that you and I will probably never enjoy. So when it's all said and done about, whether you want to call someone alpha, simp, whether you want to call Jada this and that, look, we have to deal with this. We have to deal with the situation that we're dealing with right now, and this is what I want to talk about right now. So, and this is it, Skills, man. This is the crux of this is the crux of it. This is the crux of really where the conversation has to be headed to, because budgets come out from Parliament, and all I'm going to say is, in other words, like I said, we are going to be screwed if you don't have your heads on right, and if you're not looking at the right things. And at the end of the day, you got to get your money up more than ever. You have to get your finances up, and this is something which I don't often, as I should, talk about on this channel, really. But sometimes it goes without saying. But us as guys, we talk about so much. Well, in this kind of sector or space, but just in general, so much other crap gets talked about instead of, for me, the fundamentals, resources, power. I mean, bro, how many people nowadays talk about that enough? It's just not enough in comparison to other horse crap that goes on, or the BS that people be talking about. So yeah, that's what we're going to get into today. Please make sure you like the stream, share the stream, subscribe if you want to. Thank you everyone for watching on the playback if you are listening to the playback. So what I want to talk about was, I came across an article, but of course I've been looking at the news in regards to, well, basically the budget, because if you are living, paying bills, you will notice that things are going up. I want to say, if you're living life, paying bills, um, you're renting, you got a car, you're driving, things are going up. Things aren't going down. Inflation's at all-time high, and the question is, what the hell is the government doing to try and curtail it? And that's what we're going to get into this article, because living standards, we all talk about. Let's go get into it, because we always talk about the West. People always talk about, you know, um, you live in certain situations, you shouldn't be bothered about anything, you shouldn't be worried, you should be doing this and doing this. And this kind of serves as part two of the whole stream I did about the whole millennials being snowflakes. And I had some people in my comment section, saying, "Oh, you millennials are this. You need to get these skills. You don't know what you're born." And I was trying to explain to the guy, I think it was a guy, that dude, you really don't understand about how the cost of living and how things, just because you have different jobs available, it doesn't mean that all of a sudden these jobs are going to pay you 50, 60, 70K plus and you're going to be living the high life. That's not what it means. It just means that you're going to be in a different field of expertise. House prices still at its highest it's ever been. Cost of living still at the highest it's ever been. The wage gap differential, again, because of the living cost, is not at a level where it's sustainable. Pretty much, and this is also another thing, especially if you live alone. If you're single and you're living alone, that it's even doubly worse. That's why a lot of times when it comes to, mortgages, renting, buying houses, whatever it needs to be, even just when it comes to eating out, a lot of times you do pay a bit of a penalty cost if you are not either in a couple or as a group, if you're going out with, the man dem or the gal dem or just some people from work or something like that. So listen, life is not getting any easier. And with all that's going on, as you know, in Ukraine and Russia, it's definitely not getting easier. And it's about to get even worse come the fall or come the autumn. So I'm just going to read this article. We're just going to get into this and we're going to just, give my two penny thoughts on this. And then I'm going to open it up for everyone else to have their say about, are you worried about what's taking place? Are you not worried about the situation that we're facing? Seriously. Because again, people are and you're right, Skills. People are talking about that whole Oscars thing for me more than it needs to be. I mean, listen, let me just I say slightly touch on this, which is where I'm at with things. I had a conversation with my brother about this, and ultimately it was like this: yeah, we don't really care. But truth be told, when I was listening to some of the reactions and listening to some of the versions or their viewpoints, I'll be honest with you, I've not really had anything to disagree on actually on either side. There's a lot of things which I agree on all sides, a lot of things I disagree on. I'm not really got anything really staunch to really, oh yeah. Bro, for me, I just don't care about it that much. I just don't care about it too much to it to, upstage me. But I know how it is. I know how the YouTube game is. So, don't get me wrong. When people do it, I know what it's all about. So um I ain't gonna criticize anyone for covering the whole situation. At the end of the day, it happened in public view. So it is what it is. It's up for public criticism. So I got nothing against it. But I also find it interesting. I'm gonna say this. Because you know how Red Pillars are going to take this. I knew how Red Pillars were going to take this, the male content creators. And I thought to myself, I always find it interesting how these Red Pillars at this moment of time understand the boundaries that it takes in regards to violence. And, that that kind of joke doesn't deserve that kind of response. And, that's not what you should be really doing. You should be holding yourself to a higher account and higher standards. I'm like, all right, cool. Makes sense. I don't kind of disagree with that kind of whole ideology about violence and that kind of stuff. But I'm like, bro, the hypocrisy that comes from that space when, if you look at them, whenever they disagree with each other, what is the first thing that they want to do with each other? They want to fight. So I always find it interesting how this situation for them, and we all know why it's different because it involves a black woman. I always find it interesting how when it involves them and their beats and their arguments, when majority of them believe the same things, but they have a slight disagreement and you disrespect me online, not in person, online, they want to fight. But when it comes to other people, other situations, oh no, that ain't alpha, that's beta. So I'm like, all right, whatever. But again, going back to what I said, look, whatever you want to think of the situation, man, they're living the high life, they're living the rich life. It just is what it is. It's not something which I'm going to press myself up too much about it because again, real stuff's going on right here for us peasants. You know what I mean? So they don't have to worry about inflation. They don't have to worry about all that other kind of crap that we have to deal with. You have to deal with that crap. You have to deal with the rising cost of fuel prices. They don't have to. They can travel on private jets if they wanted to. So that's why I'm just not really, bro. Sometimes I'm like, I really don't care for a lot of things these days. It just is what it is. Now let's get into this article. So let's get into this, and I'm gonna go into this. So this is a BBC article. So this is all legit. But again, if you're living in the land of the living and you're not just been a flipping zombie or just completely ignorant, then you have to know what's going on. You just have to know what's going on. But I'm going to educate you right now. So people face biggest drop in living standards since 1956. 1950 flipping six. Soaring energy prices could push inflation to a 40-year high of 8.7% in the final 3 months of 2022, the government forecast said. On this note, because again, the first thing this year I've received, and again, let me know if this is the same for anyone else in the chat. The first thing I received this year was from my energy provider say, your bills are going up. So we talk about how energy prices are going to go up even more at the end of the final 3 months of 2022. Brethren, energy prices have already gone up in April. So in April, there's another, like you have like the price cap, but in April, there's another price increase, or the start of the price increase, sorry, in which for a lot of people, it's doubled. I know people who've on direct debits of like £150 they're paying a month. It's going up to like 300 quid. And I'm like, you talk about the final 3 months, April is when it's really starting. So I'm like, it's crazy. Double whammy. Let's continue. So, rising price and tax hikes mean living standards will not recover to their pre-pandemic level until they predict 24 to 2025. The Office for Budget Responsibility said the chances that the government would stand by people hit by higher prices. So they say. Living standards, disposable household incomes when adjusted for inflation are expected to drop 2.2% this year. That would be their largest fall in financial year records since records began. So think about this. It's saying it would be the largest fall in a financial year since records began. So, truth be told, this whole idea of living standards being its lowest since 1956 kind of is a false dichotomy, because actually it means since we've recorded it. God knows what would have been the case had we recorded it before 1956. Could it have been a lot worse? It probably could be, but this is what happens, when you don't record things sooner than later. So in the spring statement, Rishi Sunak said a 5p a litre fuel duty cut would take effect at 6 o'clock, and he raised the threshold at which workers start paying national insurance from 9,600 to 12,570. So apparently that's going to give some windfall, but these are not the very, very poorest. But again, for people who work, people who do full time, that won't affect them, because that's really wages which are for reserved for the very, 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 very let's just say they're very, very poor of us. Let's be honest. People, I'm assuming care workers, part-time workers, people are disabled, that kind of stuff. But still, obviously, for them, it still means a hell of a lot. Don't get it confused. But the OBR, which publishes its economic forecast twice a year, said Russia's invasion of Ukraine had major repercussions for the global economy, whose recovery from the worst of the pandemic was already being buffeted by Omicron, supply bottlenecks, and rising inflation. And of course, we all know what that means with what's going on. The jump in oil and gas prices brought about by the conflict would weigh heavily on the UK economy that has only just recovered its pre-pandemic level. Petrol prices has already risen by 20% since the OBR's previous forecast, and household energy bills are set to increase by 54% in April. So again, let's talk about the final 3 months of the year. Again, in April, 54%. That's half of that's 50%. Again, 50% of your bills. And it's just or 54. It's crazy. It's crazy. I'm like, how are people expected to navigate this kind of situation? How are people expected to be able to, again, this is what I get told. Oh, you guys are this, you guys that, you should be able to save. These are the kind of things which not just millennials, obviously everyone's dealing with it, but just imagine the generation coming up behind them and what's going on, how they have to try and, again, they want to save, get on the energy ladder, they want to have start a family. These are all pushing a lot of decision making out of control of people. This is why people are trying to have no kids. This is why people decide to have probably one kid or two kids, because life costs are extremely high. So if wholesale energy prices remain as high as expected, then energy bills would rise by another 40% in October to take the bill for a typical household to £2,801 a year. That's crazy. The energy regulator Ofgem has already said bills would increase 54% to 1971 for a typical household from April. With prices at such a rapid rate, wages would not keep up and people would spend less, as always. And that's the thing. Just because these things, wages aren't increasing in line with the level of inflation. So it doesn't matter how much wages are these days. It doesn't matter what you say about, oh, you earn this amount, you earn over 40, you over the 50. It don't matter. If cost of living is so high, it's all relative. As a result, it has dramatically slashed its growth forecast. In October, prior to Russia's invasion of Ukraine, it expected the UK economy to grow 6% this year. Now it expects growth of just 3.8% this year. So again, all the situations taking place, less growth, less opportunities, higher prices. We are going to be in for a tough time this year, folks. We're in for a tough time. So it's crazy. So all this crap that people are talking about, cool. But bro, this is going to affect you on the day. This is going to affect you people. This is going to affect you guys. The chancellor promised to stand by families, but some of the families may feel more like it's put arms around them only to pick their pockets. As always, much of the increased burden isn't the government's fault, reflecting global energy and food costs and supply issues. Come April, the average household has to find nearly 1,000 extra per year just to afford the same stuff they did a year ago. So you got to think about that. Can people find £1,000 extra per year on top of everything that they do already? Some people got that mindset. Some people, you kidding me? Again, this is average. It don't mean actually you have to find it as average. And that's without counting national insurance increases, which are still going ahead. Another thing what's going ahead, yeah, I forgot this article even didn't even bring it up. In total, the extra government help announced this October, according to the Office for Budget Responsibility, will only compensate for a third of the prospective blow to living standards in the next 12 months. So think about that. All the kind of stuff that the government's proposing to help us, a maximum is only going to help us by 33%, 0.33333. It's not just household fortune out of state, but the entire recovery upon the enriched chances pin the hopes of rebuilding the public purse. So as you can see, I'm not going to read too much in the article. I'm just going to show you this, but again, look at that. You see the biggest drop in living standards. We see how it all just pans out. We see how everything's going down. Look, it's not looking like pretty reading at all when it comes to this situation, what we face today. And what I find quite interesting, and this is where when I look at politicians, and this is one of the things which kind of kills me about this whole, well, just how UK politics and how I suppose out of touch is what I would like to say in regards to how they are, how they perceive things, how um, they live in comparison to how we live. Because when you look at majority of the cabinet, now, big ups to all of them. It's not their fault, but a lot of them, again, Boris Johnson, Rishi Sunak, Michael Gove, a lot of them come from privileged backgrounds, more so than the average person. So when I was looking at, or when I was watching a segment on LBC in which Rishi Sunak was getting grilled about the budget, he was talking about the increase. It was a woman. She was on the call. She was talking about she had kids. She works a pretty decent job for her standards, obviously not the best. And she was just saying that, with all the increases, with all the energy prices, the fuel prices, the living costs, etc., how is it possible, or what are you going to do to try and offset that? And one of the first things that he did, and this is almost people call it his infamous "let him eat cake" moment. And people were saying, well, he said, "Oh, I completely understand your situation. I've got wife and kids," which is all true. And we have to consider this, and we have to do this, and all this kind of other stuff. And then we was just like, well, hold on a second, Rishi. You and your wife are billionaires. So while I'll agree that okay, it may curtail some of the excessive spending, at the same token, you're not living the life that other people are living. And this is where, when it comes to our politics, our politicians, and this is where I really feel at the moment, is that a lot of them are out of touch because they've never had to experience some of the things that other people have had to experience. And when you look at how, and this is that whole classism that happens over here in this region, in which they go to school, study PPE, they go to these schools, they go to, again, eating educated, they're high risers, they're almost prepped to go into politics, and they're the kind of people who are making life-changing decisions which are going to affect the average stiff, you and me. So I'm thinking to myself, when you listen to these kind of callers, and again, listen, I'll say this, and this is something that I've learned when I talk to other people, is that a lot of people truly will not understand the situation until they've experienced it themselves. So as much as they try and relate to it, they really can't. I remember talking to this person at work, and was going out. It was us and a few people. It was like a work thing, and with work things you have expenses. So if anyone's been out with work, they'd understand that on certain situations for certain companies, at least mine, at least, you have like expenses. And what people do then, or what people assume, is because you have expenses in which you can claim back the money you've spent from the company at a later date, is that, oh, that must mean you should be able to spend whatever you want to do and claim it back. I said to that person, well, hold on, that's not necessarily true. If that person doesn't have the finances up front, it doesn't matter what kind of expenses they can claim back, they can't afford to spend it. And for the life of them, this individual pretty much had to wrap their brain around that topic, because he couldn't understand from his perspective, because he had the finances to spend what he needed to spend. He could go out every single night because it was away, it was in York. So he could do what he wanted. He could go to all the restaurants, he could go out, he could do what he needed to do. And he was like, don't worry about it, you can claim it back. Don't worry about it, you can claim it back. It's all good, it's all good, it's all good. But it was like, well, bro, I had to tell him, look, that may be good for you, but if someone can't afford it off the get-go, that's irrelevant. And it's like, this is the kind of thing where it comes to these politicians a lot of times, and how I perceive them to be, and how, especially the ones who make the decisions, you have a lot of ones who are backbenchers. You have a lot of ones who, let's be honest, are, I would say, come from the same type of backgrounds that you do, but they're usually the ones who aren't in the front. They're not the ones who are like the chancellor of these checkers. They aren't the ones who, obviously, the PMs. They aren't the ones who are the secretary for education, secretary of home state. They aren't the ones who make these critical decisions. No. That's reserved for the upper elite. And unfortunately, again, This is why when you talk to these politicians and they make these decisions, you're thinking, why have they done this? Why have they not understand we need more of a break? This is why. This is the point. This is the point. This is the purpose. And yes, Skittles, you're 100% correct. You're right. It's not about being poor, but I'm going to use poor as an example. But you're right. People can't fathom what it's like to be in another person's shoes until you've been in that person's shoes. And even still, and this is the funny thing, because this is, you could relate it back to the whole situation that took place yesterday. You never know about, people talk about, oh, I would have done this in that situation. I would have done that in this situation. I'm like, until you've been in that situation, you have no idea how you're going to react, and you have no idea how you're going to be until you're in that situation. You just sometimes you can't understand that person's point of view. And when it comes to this situation here with these politicians and how it all is, I really don't think they understand it, purely because you're right, they've not lived the shoes. But even still, though, I would say this: there is a level of empathy that you can apply, even if you've not lived in that person's shoes. So while I get that you may not understand fully, you can definitely empathize with somebody. I think you can definitely give somebody that, I may not understand it fully, but I can be of a situation or a mindset where, do you know what? I know this will screw a lot of people's lives up. Because at the end of the day, no one can truly understand what you as an individual go through. Even if you have people come from the same background, same household, same family, everyone has their own individual lives, because they each interpret their lives differently. You can have a situation, everyone has a different type of viewpoint. So it's just interesting when I see certain things. But when we go back to what took place with Rishi Sunak and how, because obviously his mandate and what he's looking for is going to be something completely different than our agendas. He's looking to solidify himself as a chancellor. People say that he's got his ambitions to become prime minister. I don't know if that's true or not. I know things have died down since the whole Partygate, because we've got the Russia-Ukraine conflict. But the thing is, what I want to get from this live stream is, look, this is going to affect us on levels which, I'll be honest with you, ain't going to affect them, and even us as a people, as a community group. There are certain things which I've done live streams, I've done videos talking about this in regards to our wealth in this nation, and how when it comes to, number one, the position that we're in lower positions. We're in entry level positions, which gets affected easily when it comes to cuts, budget cuts. We're in a lot of social care, healthcare kind of positions as well. Again, and this is another thing which governments have huge control over. There's a lot of our people in social care and things like that, which again, a lot of them are governmental programs which require governmental funding. So when they want to cut funding to be able to try and finance or relief or whatever they're trying to do, this is the kind of areas and sectors which gets affected. We get affected. Again, we're not in a sort of corporate positions. I think we're like 5% of the board levels. There are certain things in which I'm just like, it really, 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 really is going to affect us. And this is the way I want to bring the stream about. Because look, my question to everyone's going to be is, how are you set? Because spring is coming, but truth be told, there's that infamous phrase has been talked about. Winter is here for a lot of us. It's not going to be discriminatory. It's going to affect every one of us, whether you're men, whether you're a man, whether you're a woman. It's going to affect us all. And when I read that article, when I looked at the budget, when I got my energy bills in, when I looked at the national insurance hike that's going to be there, look at the taxes that are going to be increased, even if wages increases, I'm like, bro, this ain't going to offset anything. It's going to, at the very, very most, net off. But let's be honest, it's just going to decrease my funds. So my question for everyone else is, are you feeling the pinch? Are you even feeling this kind of stuff? Because I assume, judging by people's response to a lot of things, that either people don't care or they're good, they're set. And if you are, cool. Look, I no hate, no anything. It is what it is. But this is the kind of things which, when people talk about why is it the younger generation can't get on the housing ladder? Why is it younger generation aren't getting married at the way that they do? Why is the younger generation are going down a different route? Why are the younger generation doing these things? Why are the younger generations not maturing into adulthood? These are all part and parcel of the reason why. And not to mention that food banks is on the rise. If you look at the stats about the food banks and how it's increased year on year, and this is all under a conservative government. This is another thing I really want to talk about as well, is that, now granted, I will give them the benefit of the doubt. Some of the things that they've experienced is not their fault. They couldn't control that a war was going to break out. I guarantee it. They couldn't control that COVID, the pandemic, was going to break out. I agree. But even their response to a lot of these things, anyone and their dog knew that when Rishi Sunak was handing out all those relief packages, the funding, the eat out to take out, and all those kind of other things, the furlough, we all know it's going to be just a situation that's going to lead us right back here, which is, guess what? Us, the people, are going to have to pay for it the most. Because when it's all said and done, the super rich, the elites, they're going to be good. Don't worry about them. They will be good. They've got their accountants, they've got their offshore accounts, they've got their way of leaving. Whereas people who are squeezed into what we like to call the middle classes, which to be fair, that's actually getting less and less these days, they're the ones who are going to be affected at the most by this kind of stuff because they don't have the maneuverability to be able to say, you know what, I can move my account here. They're just the working people, maybe white office collar workers or blue collar workers. They're the ones who are just going to be really feeling the pinch, especially if you have family. So these are the reasons why when people say, oh, I even get comments from family members like, oh, when I was your age, I was doing this. True. But when you were my age, house prices were a little bit more respectable, so you can actually get onto it. Therefore, once you have a house, you generally think of a family, all these kind of things taking place. I know that's not the be all and end all to get these things, but there are certain, what's the word, milestones that people see as maturity, which if you're being priced out of the market, that does inevitably delay your ability to do certain things. Let's just be real. If wages aren't increasing line of inflation, you can't afford things, it's gonna make your options limited. Or people with the smart minds are gonna say, why would I bring kids into this world if I can't afford them? Why would I do these things that I can't afford? Why would a lot of these things means that our lives have changed. That's why a lot of younger people now, a lot of people when it comes to buying houses, a lot of them are like, do I want to buy a house? Do I want to do this? A lot of people nowadays, again, this is where sometimes I will say this: the Instagram lifestyles cause a bit of an issue, where people now are seeing on the flip side, it's not about buying a house, it's about traveling. It's about living life the fullest, which again, it can lead to a little bit more of adolescent mindset, adolescent thinking, as opposed to necessarily maturing. What people are now doing is trying to keep up with the Joneses in a very, very immature and not the best way around it. That's another thing that's caused a lot of problems. But again, going back to the subject, we are facing at the moment the biggest drop in living standards since 1956. And these are the things in which, let's be honest, scares me the most. All this other crap that's been going on, man, that's for the birds. But this is really scaring me the most. Now, Skittles, you put something on here which I hear what you're saying. And I agree with your premise. Living well below your means. But to be fair, this is the killer. Certain families can't do that, and this is where it is. Certain people living below their means pretty much means living below a line which they cannot get to for whatever reason that may be. It could be again because they're in a job that can't pay them that much, because they may have a disability, or it may be because the industry that they're in is being curtailed. I know people who are in, especially work for the government. If you ever work for government jobs, and I've spoken to family members and friends who work for governments, I'm telling you, they don't get no pay increases like in the private sector. This is one of the reasons why this is my advice now, I would never, ever, ever, ever want to get into the government job. Never. Because of that fact. Because certain roles and for if depending where you're on in the country, the government jobs are the ones who are the main providers of your income. So you really have to be the lookout in certain situations where if you don't live in certain hotspots, so basically outside of London and probably Birmingham and Manchester, you are at the mercy to a lot of things which you cannot control. And why I agree with what your statement is, live below your means. When you have a situation where people have government jobs which their pay increase has not, probably like 2% in 10 years, that's how ridiculous it is. Cost of living each year increases by like 5.1%. You got all these bills that are just increasing, but your wages aren't increasing. So sometimes I agree what you're saying, but then it becomes into a situation where you now have to do things which you don't want to do, which is borrow in order to, again, maybe a loan, and maybe again extra credit. So you have to do things which you don't want to have to do, because guess what? You no longer have that ability to do so. And especially if, because most people want to do this, if they want to have a child, then it becomes a situation where again you have an untenable situation, and then life happens. You never know what happens to yourself as an illness. You never know what happens if, I don't know, you and your partner splits up, which means maybe half the wages goes. There's so many things that happens in people's lives which, in a perfect world, yes, you want to live below your means. In a perfect world, you want to budget well. In a perfect world, this is what happens. But then life happens. Again, look at the situation. What's caused this? The war. It's crazy. It's crazy. And the things which you cannot control. And again, the things you can control, I definitely agree with you. So I definitely not going to say that it's not something which I think most people should try and do. But again, when you look at the situation here where you have energy prices increasing by 54%, you try and tell someone to live within your means when that energy price increases by 54% in April. That's giving you a 3 month situation to try and change pretty much your fortune. And again, then you got the situation where you got petrol prices, energy prices, fuel prices, sorry. Then you got national insurance hikes. Then you got the council tax hikes. Again, this is another thing. Council tax. Anyone knows anything about council tax will know how much of a pain in the backside they are in regards to how they operate. If you don't pay, you go to jail. You get CCJs. There are all these flipping stealth, I want to call them stealth tax. They're just teeth tax in which the government imposes that you have to do if you live in this life, which if you don't, you're screwed. So all these things are increasing. And I'm looking at my budget every month and I'm thinking, bro, other people may not be as fortunate as me, but even I'm like, that is just ridiculous. So I'm just like, look, the government will say we need to find an extra £1,000 a year or extra, on average, and all that kind of other stuff, but it's not as easy as it seems. And yeah, skills, man, I ain't holding you to it. I'm just offering a defense to it where, yeah, if you're able to do that, then by all means, please do it. And I'll definitely say continue to do it for this year, because this year is going to test a lot of people like none other before. So for sure, if you're able to live within your means in a good way where you can save, you're good, you can maneuver, and you can save enough for a rainy day, 100%. But I'm telling you, with the increases that we're seeing, this is what I mean when I say people are struggling. And a lot of times, and this is where I got a bit frustrated with a guy in the comments on a video I did about the millennial snowflakes, is that there's certain things which you cannot for as much as you want to plan for, there are things which we couldn't control. The recession that curtailed a lot of situations, unless you have maybe parents who will set yourself up in a good manner. This is another thing that people don't really want to acknowledge. A lot of people have a lot better starts in life due to the good work that their parents have done. Not everyone can say that. Not everyone can say, you know what, I can rely on the bank of mum and dad to be able to see me out for a few months. Not everyone can say I can rely on the bank of mum and dad to start me out on a house. There's so many situations that people neglect. Even now, when it comes to buying a house, one of the top things that they're trying to tell people to do is go to your mum and dad. I'm like, well, hold on a second. What if you don't have that situation set up where you can do that? What then? It's like a pause, pause. And it's just like, even now you can get like guarantor mortgages, guarantor things where your parents have to put down a deposit. I'm like, well, it's the same thing as basically going to your bank and mum and dad and asking, give me, 30, 40, 50K for a deposit. Most people don't have that kind of ability. So what happens is this, and this is unfortunately what I see a lot. The people who have been able to navigate, and credit to them, and who aren't really at risk the most for things like this, they look at other people and say, "Do you know what? Why can't you live in, why can't you save? Why can't you do this? I can do this. Why can't you do that?" And they, unfortunately, they do not know, because they've not lived that life. They don't know the kind of situation that they've had to start with. And let's be honest, when it comes to finances, and this, so I learned this the hard way. And again, second piece of advice, take it or leave it. To get yourself into debt will probably take you about 10 minutes at the most, especially with these forms, especially nowadays online. It's getting a little bit harder to get the credit, but to get yourself in debt will take about 10 minutes. To get yourself out of debt could take you 10 plus years. That is what I'm talking about, where I'm saying, if you're able to set yourself up to start off in a good footing, by all means, please. But I'm telling you, take it from someone who's been in a situation like that, where it's just been like that. It's just been a bit peak. You can get yourself into a lot of trouble financial wise very early on, and that will put you down, or that will put you on a path where you're really playing catch up for a hell of a long time. Same with the economy, same with the government. They loaned or they borrowed a hell of a lot of money to try and get people into to make businesses not go bust, furlough, eat out, take out. Now look at it. It's going to put us in a situation where for the next decades, easily, we're going to be paying the cost. And this is how the cost starts. Drop in living standards, increase the petrol prices. Obviously, that's a separate situation, but inflation when it comes to national insurance, when it comes to taxes, when it comes to your fuel prices, when it comes to all these kind of things, even say food, all these things are as a result of, guess what? People, government's borrowing, and the situation that, again, some things are out of your control. So this is kind of where I'll sort of push back for people who get on people's cases a little bit about how, oh, you should be able to do this, you should be able to do that. Listen, again, like in a perfect world, in a perfect setting, I don't actually disagree with you. I actually agree. If you're able to live within your means, that's your first priority. If it means living in a lesser accommodation, if you can do, by all means. I know people sometimes have families, it's not possible. But if it means living in less accommodation, you have to do what you have to do. Unfortunately, this is the situation that we live in. But that leads me to kind of a next point, which I kind of wanted to get to. And this is just my musings about what are the options available to us? Because at the end of the day, everyone has different situations. And this is the thing which I've been thinking about. And a lot of us, in this community talk about this a lot. And I've watched a few videos about this, and people took the plunge and they left the UK. Because again, a lot of people, they look at the West and look at these places, especially when it comes to the UK. You ever go back to the Caribbean, go to the Caribbean, one of the things I'd always talk about is, oh, England's paved, streets are paved with gold. And we're like, no, that's not the case at all. They see, oh, you must live like this, you must live like that. I'm like, no, 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 no. People are living average lives, less than average lives, less than spectacular lives, especially when the weather is crap and all this kind of other stuff and all the other things that you have to face. So I'm just thinking to myself, maybe it's better for a different type of life, a different type of scenario. I've seen people move back to the Caribbean in which the wages aren't as high, but then again, the cost of living is not as high. So truth be told, that actually might be beneficial. The schoolings are actually a lot better than we give them credit for. Of course, the weather's going to be beautiful. The environment's going to be a lot more friendly. I know it's getting worse and worse in certain Caribbean nations, certain environments, but I suppose from a standpoint of being able to, if you like, better survive, then there are some actual benefits, especially now in a situation where you can work anywhere in the world. Because nowadays, since the pandemic has proven one thing, at least in my line of work, is you really don't have to be in an office location to work. You can work from anywhere in the world. You can do what you need to do. So I'm just like, one of the things which I'm contemplating, and I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments as to whether this is a viable option, because people always, work in the UK and retire elsewhere. But I'm like, what about working elsewhere and actually not living in the UK? You see what I'm saying? Because again, a lot of these rich people do it in terms of their businesses. They either set their business up in another location or they work from another location. However, whichever way they do it, they set themselves up to make sure that they can pay as less as possible, because they understand they want to keep as much money in their pocket as they possibly can do. And by things like this, that is going to be more than impossible. It's going to be much difficult to try and do that. And in the world where it's hard to navigate, I'm telling you, it's something which I don't know about you guys, but I'm definitely been contemplating how that works. And one of the things which kind of troubled me as well, in which I wanted to show as well, is just when we look at us as a people, and we look at what we're going through, which is depending on how you believe it, a lot, or not a lot, depending on who you believe to. But one of the things which I was looking at was the stats on homelessness. Now, there's something called statutory homelessness, which basically means it's not the same thing as homeless man on the street. That's one thing. But statutory homelessness is where you, as a family, are forced to relocate, and the governments are supposed to help you. And with the rising costs of council tax, rent, this is something which I was looking at thinking, what are the knock-on effects of us not being able to acquiesce to the new environment, the new life after April? And homelessness, statutory homelessness, is one of them. Now, when you look at the stats, it actually troubled me the most. And I'm just going to share my screen again, because this is another thing which, again, it killed me. Now, most of our people, as we know, are based down in London. So this is the last available statistic on the government website, which showed percentage of homeless households that are from each ethnic group by area. Now, as you can see, let's look at this. So even in England, again, we make up, everyone keeps telling me, oh, we only make up this amount of the percentage of the population. But look at it. So white people clearly are the most represented, which makes sense. Then we have us at 14%, Asian at 9%. Now look at London. Again, most of us are located down there. But even still, look at that. You have 30% black folk who are suffering from what they call homeless, I'll say statutory homelessness. Again, that's not the case of we're saying black people are all on the streets. That's just a case of saying these are people who have to be relocated. Now, I don't know if it's because of gentrification. It probably likely will be that our people are most affected when it comes to these type of situations. But effectively, it means that us and all people are being dispersed or needs to be dispersed, which means, guess what? We are facing a lot of serious issues which need to be addressed. And again, with the rise of house costs, with the rise of the living costs, that kind of stuff isn't going to dwindle down anytime soon. So this is something which, for me, is kind of just a live stream as a call to arms. Say, look, spring's here, weather's good, people are feeling good, cool. But just be mindful, people. We're facing the biggest drop in living standards since probably most of us on this particular channel have even been born. And things like homelessness, again, if you know Maslow's hierarchy of needs, shelter is the foundation. of what it becomes to even be remotely self-fulfilled. So when I looked at that stat, I looked at that government website, I was stunned. I was stunned because everyone says to me, you don't really see many um black people homeless and that kind of stuff. I'm like, you're right. Well, at least not I am. I mean, I do see it. I do see and I do see a lot of black men in the bookies, but that's a whole nother conversation. But I know for a fact that, again, when it comes down to places like London, gentrification is huge. They're trying to, hey, we all know what that's all about. They're trying to sweep clean. They're trying to sweep it clear. And a lot of white people, let's be honest, they've been moving out of places like London, Birmingham as well. That's a huge part what they've been doing it with, in which they've been trying to move out and move to other pastures new because they're just not happy with the clientele that's been there. So these are the kind of things which my people, it will be remiss of me for not to give you at least a heads up. Say, look, enjoy spring, cool, but these are the real issues that are going on. People talk about the whole Will Smith, Jada Pinkett Smith bollocks, that Chris Smith, Chris Rock BS. Cool, talk about it, but at least let me talk about something which I think is going to affect all of us. Because at the end of the day, they don't have to worry about homelessness. At the end of the day, they don't have to worry about inflation. At the end of the day, they don't have to worry about, truth be told, the conflict that's going on in Ukraine and Russia and how it's going to affect their households. They can virtue signal. They can talk about how we need to do this, how we need to do that. They can say all that kind of crap on the privilege of their stage. Now, they worked hard to get there. There's no denying it. But I'm just trying to say, you as the ordinary peasant, let's just call it that, let's just be honest, you are going to have to face these kind of issues day in, day out. When it comes down to your problems, when you want to talk about their problems, you want to criticize whatever side you want, it doesn't really matter. It's all the same thing. When you want to talk about them, just know this: you're still going to face the same personal problems that you did yesterday, today. And what are they looking like? Are they looking good, bad, indifferent? From what I can see, based on the article, based on what the government's trying to do, it's not going to be pretty reading for most of us. Most of us are going to get affected by this, unless you are, again, one of the privileged people where you've been able to set yourself up. Then cool. But for most of us, I think there was, I tried to get this for the live stream, but I couldn't get this. But I'm pretty sure most of us, if you was to say your wages were to come out, or if you weren't to get your monthly wages for the next 1 month, just 1 month, if you weren't going to get your wages for 1 month, I'm pretty sure most of us would have a situation where we couldn't afford to even remotely live just 1 month. And they say to us, this is in the perfect world now, you should have at least 6 months savings. So the bare minimum that you should have in a perfect economy that's working for all of us, in a situation where life is good, where inflation is not as, cost of living is not as high, wages are in line with living costs, etc., etc. They tell you that you're supposed to have 6 months worth of wages in your bank. Now, how many people can actually claim that kind of stuff? So even when it comes to adopting a child, I know a person who went through that whole process. You need at least 6 months worth of salary, or your salary, in as savings, as a bare minimum. That's the kind of thing what they're talking about. So nowadays, most people can't even live month to month. That's why back in the early 2010s and whatnot, again, payday loans were huge because people understood that. Guess what? People can't even afford to live from one payday to one payday if something was to go wrong. So imagine, again, this is why I felt sorry for business over the pandemic. I'm like, how the hell are you going to afford to, survive 2 years pretty much, in which business had to open, close, less business, less traffic. So I'm like this. Most people can't even live 1 month without their salary and be good, let alone 6 months, 2 years. So this is the kind of things in which, I'll be honest with you, it's looking peak and it's looking bad. And yeah, you're right. 6 months. That's mad. It's mad, but that's what they say. You're supposed to have at least 6 months, and that's just as a buffer. That's excluding savings. So you see what exactly what I'm saying. When I say nowadays, it's more about people who have nots. And this is where I'm just looking at this article. I'm looking at the news. I'm looking at the politics. I'm looking at all the policies. And all I'm going to say is this: look, sometimes the BS is good. You know what I mean? It sells news, but as you all know, with the BS, it hides the real, what's going on. And don't be fooled and don't be caught blindsided by the real. By April, you're going to feel something. Most of us are going to feel something which we've not felt since 1956, and it's going to continue all the way up until the end of the year. So all I'm going to say for people is, look, I would love to know how you guys are going to manage to deal with this. I mean, Jarena, I think you're down in London. I mean, are you even looking to move out of London, for example? Is that an option? No, Skittles man. Yeah. People have been doing that, but here's a problem. Here's a thing that I found as well, which is what they don't talk about. And that's why I say it's all relative, because even if you move outside London, the industries there, depending, a lot of industries aren't there, and your average wage is a hell of a lot less. So even though house prices are cheaper, if you don't earn enough, it's still all the same way. The poorest region in the UK, or at least in England, is in the northeast. Now, the northeast is like Newcastle, Middlesbrough, those types of areas, County Durham. Now, if that's the poorest areas, yet you have probably the cheapest amount of mortgages, you're thinking, how does those two correlate? I tell you why. Because no industries there, there's barely any jobs there, there's barely any progression there, and most of the people, guess what? It's a brain drain. So all the talented people, because there's no industries around there enough, they have to leave, and that's the problem with these areas. It may sound good on paper, but unless you're making good wages elsewhere, you are still screwed. And this is what I see with the UK. A lot of it is just a bubble waiting to burst. A lot of places are either too expensive, or if they're not expensive, you're not making the wages enough to make a dent. So it's all the same crap. And again, so regardless of where you live, everyone's going to feel this. Food banks are most prevalent. I think it's in Wales, then again Northeast England, then in the West Midlands, then London and East Midlands. So these are the kind of things which a lot of people are facing. So it's just absolute crazy when I see certain things and certain comments I hear from people. That's why sometimes people say, "Oh, you're getting a bit this, you're getting a bit that, you're getting a bit this, you're getting a bit that." I'm like, bro, I'm like, I've managed to look at in certain situations in my life, but I understand sometimes where people have come from, where people have been. So I always understand when people give these flippant comments to try and look, unless you lived in that person's shoes, unless you've had a little piece of that life, sometimes it's best sometimes just to understand what they're saying, as opposed to saying, "Oh, well, you should be able to do this, or you should be able to do that, you should be able to do this, you should be able to do that." So yeah, that's that's all a bit crazy. Um, to be fair, I've never actually visited Newcastle. It's one place I wanted to go. It actually looks, I thought it looked pretty good, and the people seem to be quite fun. No, Geordies, but okay, fair enough. Then I don't know when the last time you visited, so maybe it's changed. Apparently, there's meant to be investment up in the north in those type of regions, but from what I hear, it's only probably like Manchester and maybe and Liverpool. Everything else in the north is just nothing but a waste pile. Places like Burnley and Blackburn and them type of places here. So it's crazy. This is it. Skittles, man. I am thinking about this big time. Not just necessarily moving out of the country, but even moving outside the city, just for a move to see what kind of opportunities there. Because for the industry that I want to get into, or not get into, but for the career path change that I want to get into, the opportunities are most prevalent in London, shock horror, and then Manchester's another one which is pretty good. So it is something which I'm thinking to take the next step in my career stage. I'm definitely thinking about leaving the place and moving and all that kind of other stuff. So for sure, for sure. And here's the thing about Manchester. I've seen a lot of articles on this. And this is where, if you're positioned right, you can really take advantage. This is another thing about timing. Timing is key in everything. Even now, when we talk about these prices dropping, for other people, they see this as an opportunity. And this is where sometimes if people are out there and people got that mindset of being able to sense an opportunity, this is one of those key places. If you do trading in forex, or you do trading in this, I know it sounds like one of those schemes. I hear all this forex crap coming up, but some people take this advantage to make a hell of a lot of finances, because prices going up, then price will come down, so they can take real advantage and make a hell of a lot of money. So yeah, with Manchester, I've seen investment opportunities for apartments down on the river. I've seen absolute quite a few things, but again, there's always a kicker, just that startup capital that you need. But if you are settled and if you are situated, by all means, man, for sure, it is something I'm definitely thinking about in terms of just investing in other areas, let alone moving. But yeah, moving to Manchester or moving around is definitely something I've been planning on for a little while now. I'm not gonna lie to you, just because um yeah, in terms of solutions and what I'm looking to do, I can try and complain, or what can I try and best work it to get the best fit for me. So at the end of the day, if I'm broke in one city, I can be broke in another city with no problems. That's 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 the thing. If you're broke, you're broke, regardless of where you are. But can I be less broke? Probably. And can I have more opportunities? Probably. But yeah, yeah, man, absolutely, absolutely. So that would be something. That'd be something. But that's kind of really how I wanted to lay down the foundation to this live stream, because at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, these are kind of things which affect us on the daily. I mean, again, I remember traveling down using my car, and I spent a whole heap of money just to travel all the way down to Kent and back. Like, took out 6-7 hours out of my day to do so, and this was like a pretty much a straight trip there and a straight trip back. And yeah, all this kind of other stuff is just absolutely crazy. And the fuel prices weren't even at its highest, what it is right now. So a lot of these things, a lot of these situations that's going through right now, a lot of us, we're going through it. And when I look at us as a people, if you just ring fence that, when it comes to home ownership, Black Caribbeans are like 40%, Black Africans are 20%, which is the lowest categories. We are the lowest represented group for home ownership. So that means we don't have the equity to at least draw on to try and invest. Because that's another thing about having an asset, which is key. I know people aren't really too keen on home ownership in this current phase of life. I get it. But having a own home and owning it in a quote unquote sense of mortgages, it can release equity. It means you can actually do other things with that because guess what? You have an asset that you can actually invest in. It can go obviously north or south depending on how you do things. But these are things in which, let's be honest, it's something which if you can try and time it right, if you can try and do it right, you'll be all set for the best as opposed to the worst. So these are the kind of things which I just really want to discuss in this live stream. Let me know how you guys are going to be situated. If you want to come up, the live stream is down. The live stream link is in the chat. So by all means, if you want to come up and have a talk about living costs, how you're handling it, or have you even thought about it? This is another thing as well. Have you even thought about it? Because again, currently our position is not the greatest when it comes to financial income, physical income, um, income equality gaps. There's all this type of stats that I've pulled out over the last, well, since my channel started, which have always painted us in not the best light. So we are a group at risk of whenever even slight fluctuations that happen in the UK, it's gonna be peak for us. So this huge fluctuation, how are you gonna handle it? How are you handling it? Are you you guys worried? You guys moving? What's the plan of action? Because again, we talk a lot about the exodus. Shall we go back to Africa? Shall we build that up? And obviously people talk about the bad that happens because they don't have the kind of regulations, they don't have the type of structure that we have in the West, they don't have the type of ability to sort of correct things. I've heard some horror stories in which people have been done out here for like 60K. I'm like, flipping heck. That is just horror stories. So I've seen things when I watch these not Pan-Africanist channels, but these repatriation channels, in which people talk about going back to Africa, which again, I don't have any problems with it. Sounds good. Sounds, what's the word? Going back to, home, that kind of stuff. But again, it's always a case of people say better the demon you know than the demon you don't know. That's one of the kind of classic lines in what I've heard people say. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on this issue. The link is in the live chat if you want to come up. I'm not going to keep it too long, but I wanted to get this live stream out here just to put it out there for the people, them, just so that, I really want to just discuss this topic to say this is what's going on right now. And this, for me, is the most pressing concern that I have, at least for me and my peoples, or just bring it to the peoples, as opposed to some of the other type of stuff that's been going on, which again, it takes your attention away from some of the bigger, deeper issues. And again, it is what it is. But yeah, that's what's kind of crazy. And that's what's killing to me. So that's something I definitely wanted to bring up. But let me see what the chat is saying. Please make sure that you like the stream, share, subscribe if you are new. I appreciate each and every one of you for tuning in and participating. It's all love over here. Well, this is it, Manchester, and this is it. And this is one of the things which most cities are going to end up this way that I've realized. Because when you go outside of London, you got commuter cities. Obviously, because of the fact of people know, if you can live outside of London, get the wages and live in a cheaper environment, it's good. So guess what happens? Everything gets more expensive, gets pushed out. So you got places like, I know people who work in my workplace and they come from places, or used to come from places like Bath and Oxfordshire, Buckinghamshire, and they're like, the house prices are mad expensive. And obviously that's not London, but it's almost in like a commuter city. And people moving out to like places like Kent, Essex, they're moving out because guess what? They need to be able to survive. So I can guarantee when it comes to places like Manchester, which is another huge hub in the north, that's going to be the same thing as well. I can only imagine that's going to be the exact same thing in the next sort of, let's say 10, 15 years, in which Manchester is going to become highly expensive. So guess what? People are going to have to move out. And it's going to be the same thing. People just can't afford to live. People can't afford to eat. And let me know this. Can I Skittles man in Manchester, boy, you guys are in Manchester. I hear there's a huge homeless problem in the Manchester city, especially in the city centre or so central Manchester. I heard there's a huge issue with homelessness. And when I hear Manchester, there was a bit of a issue with people on spice, people cracked out of their head. So I hear a lot of things in Manchester isn't that great. I heard that Gary Neville had to set up his hotels in order to try and house a lot of these homeless people. So again, a lot of people think that, moving up the north, moving out there is all, roses. And it's like, bro, I'm telling you, it's yeah, Drew, you just say something. A lot of these places, it sounds good, but it's dark and it's just it's crazy. And a lot of it's because guess what? We've just not set the UK in a way which is beneficial for a lot of people. It just sucks the lifeblood when it comes to a lot of areas. And it just is because of it, because everything, the nucleus is set around the south. A lot of industries are gone from the north. Again, manufacturing, that kind of stuff. And but again, this is all remnants of the whole situation about, you know what, we're just not prepared for it. So yeah, and that's what I've been hearing. And it's just like it's crazy. It's crazy. So yeah, it's definitely something which when I think about places to go, a lot of the best places to go, they have a lot of these problems. So it's it's something which you can't avoid. But again, it's if you want to get better opportunities, then there's going to be also more inequality. Again, we talk about places like London. There's a huge inequality gap there because guess what? A lot of the rich and powerful have moved in there. Even people who don't even live in London, they buy these houses up for crazy, and they don't live there, but they force the prices up because they live in a nice area in London, like Kensington or some crap like that. And I'm just like, bro, the ordinary average person gets shunted out. Same like a lot of places. Again, the average person is not getting catered to. I know in my city, around the city center, what they're doing because um, student prices, foreign student prices, they get ripped off. They're building a lot of student homes. So in the city center, all them like student accommodation. I'm like, what? And I'm telling you, man, foreign students get ripped off like crazy. And because of that, our council in knots, they decided in their best wisdom, well, we best utilize it. So all these spaces now, which should have been developed for proper homes that people can't live in, proper industries that people no longer there, all of them are gonna be like these student accommodations. And it's like, bro, Knots have two big universities, don't get me wrong, but they ain't a student city, but they're just making it that way. And it's just crazy. So I'm like, people really can't afford to do crap right now. It's either there for rich foreign students or there for the rich and powerful. Everyone else, you're just screwed. You're just madly screwed. So that's how it's gonna be. That's how it's gonna be where I am. So it's mad peak. It's mad peak. But yeah, please make sure you like the stream, share if you're new. Again, people, the link is in the chat. Again, this is just a conversation, just a nice one about what's going on with the living prices, the cost of living, the fact that the standing of living is likely to be its biggest drop since 1956. Fiona, welcome to the stream. Hope you're doing well. But yeah, I mean, I just want to know whether is this something that's really worrying you? I think we all talk about this other crap that's been going on, which is cool. But again, this is something which, hell, is a hell of a lot more important. And when you look at the fact of our wages aren't rising in line with inflation, I think inflation is now saying what 8.7, well 8.7% inflation. That's what it's saying for at least for the final 3 months of the year. It's forecasted. It's mad crazy. It's going to be something which I don't know how you want to deal with it. But yeah, links in the chat, people. I'm going to pin it to the top. If no one wants to come up, that's cool. What I'll do is I'll probably float around for the next sort of few minutes, and then what I'll do is I'll shut down the stream. But I really just wanted to talk about this topic today. I wasn't going to cover the BS that's gone on. I've seen loads of people talk about it. Again, that's fine. But yeah, no, that's not what I want to talk about at this moment of time. That's crazy, crazy, crazy. Yeah. I was talking about this before. Yeah, same thing here. I had a letter from my energy bill saying that they're going to increase it by a crazy amount. You know what I did? I canceled my direct debit. I said, no, I'm not doing that. Once my bill comes in, I'm going to assess it that way. I ain't going to pay that. Even my mom was saying that her direct debit had doubled. And I'm just like, there's no way near. I know my consumption. I know prices have increased. I know my consumption no way near is that amount in which I'm going to require to pay double the amount. I don't care how much my price increase. BS. So I'm like this. Screw you. I just completely thought I cancel my direct debit. That's what I normally pay it on every month. And I thought, screw it. And I'll just pay my bill when I see it. But yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? People really, really are choosing to heat their homes or feed their kids or feed themselves. This is the kind of situation that we're facing right now, or people are facing, in which with the soaring prices, that again, if people are situated in a good way where they can actually save, great. A lot of people aren't in that kind of in that way. They're not. They're really not. They're just living hand to mouth, as they say. Again, most people, if 1 month's wages is gone, they're done for. They're done for. Can't pay their rent or can't pay their mortgage, can't pay their bills, can't do anything because people don't have the kind of savings built up because cost of living is at an all-time high and it's getting higher. So it's mad one. It's mad. Eunice Husband, welcome. Not seen you in a long time. Hope you're doing well. Hope everything's all good on your end. Yeah, if you yeah. The thing is, that's the one thing I will say, which is good thing about spring. It's not been quite so warm though, which I will say, but it's one of the things which I will agree on. I've just been keeping my heat off, hoodies, extra bit of jumpers if I'm a bit cold. But yeah, I've been like, look, I'm keeping my heat off. I'm managing my usage. I'm trying to make sure anything I can control, and that's the key. Anything I can control, I will control it. Even when it comes to driving, I'm like, do I need to drive here? Can I walk here? All this kind of other stuff. Looking at my gyms in walking distance to where I'm at, all this kind of other stuff. So all these things, I'm like, yeah, I've had to try and navigate my situation to make sure that I can actually basically not feel the pinch as much as projected, because that's the only way you can do it, innit? Unless you're going to make extra, extra coin. That's the next thing. If you can make extra finances, awesome. A lot of people are in that situation where they can pick up a second job. A lot of people are in that situation where they're able to maneuver themselves in a short way in order to offset these things. These are the things which, especially nowadays, as you get older, you realize the importance of having more than one income. A lot of people talk about passive income, but I'm telling you, it really is the truth. It's something which, at the moment, it's needed more than ever. So, yeah, passive income. People sneer at it as one of them schemes, but it is definitely something which, nowadays more than ever, you can't just rely on either one income if you're by yourself, or that's why a lot of people are coupled up, because being a couple, it is a hell of a lot more cheaper than it is being by yourself. So that's another thing. That's one of the benefits that they do say about being either being married or being whatever have you. It's one of those things where they do say it's more beneficial. Drina, have you seen my message in the private chat before I bring you up? Sorry, one sec, folks. All right. There you go. So, yeah. Thanks for coming, Drina. I hope you're doing well. What do you?
Thank you. So, what did you say?
Sorry, floor is yours. What do you want to say on this topic?
I think it's a very important topic. Well done for talking about it. Cost of living and all that. I'm one of these people. I cannot live in a cold house. I need heater.
Oh no,
that's just not me. That's there's nothing worse than living in a cold house and these stingy people that keep the heater off. Like African parents who just like to keep the house cold and torture us. It just reminds me of that. I'm not.
I was going to say, do you have a bit of a change of heart though? Since I don't know if you've got your energy bill come through the post to say in April we're increasing your prices. Have you had a change of heart at all?
I don't care how high it is. I'll still put the heater on. I need a warm house. I can't live in the cold. What is that? Like where you can just breathe and the air will come. That cold air.
Yeah. No, I hear you. I hear you.
That's the old generation. They just love to live in cold houses. It's not going to be me. If anything, I'll cut on food. But as a people, we need to lose weight anyway. So just cut.
Funny enough, though, I was thinking this, and I don't know if it's just me, but since like when I lose weight and stuff, I feel the cold more because when I don't know, maybe because when I'm bigger, I'm more hot by nature. So truth be told, that's like a coating that kind of keeps me warm. Because when I'm a bit bigger, it's like I'm actually more. I don't know if it's just me, then I feel as if you're warmer naturally because you got more weight to carry.
Yeah, that's like a bear, isn't it? Bears get fat during the winter, don't they? So that they can keep warm, and also like there's not much food, so they've stocked up. So in terms of food prices going up, I think it affects people that can't cook. Let's be honest, those that can't cook or are not very innovative, for them it's a problem when it comes to food prices because they don't know, their staple diet has gone up. It's expensive, so they don't know how to make something out of nothing, basically. They don't know how to change up dishes or, eat stuff that poor people eat back in the day.
No, that's actually very true. Actually,
Food,
sorry,
huh?
yeah, no, you're right. You're right. Actually, there's a lot of people have said that back in the day, you used to obviously cook from scratch.
Yes, but this
It's-
generation, they've been so used to like just ready-made food. For them, it's going to be a shock, but nobody's saying that because it's mostly white people that will be affected badly when it comes to food prices. I think, uh, you know, ethnic people, black people, Asians, will be all right with that. Um, but it's still food prices. I mean, cost of everyday things like household products, shoes. If those that have kids, their demands, that will obviously affect families. That's not going to be easy. Those that do have children, you're not going to have the privileges of like going, for example, the cinema. Cinema costs a lot of money nowadays. It's like £30 for a family to go to the cinema. It's ridiculous. It used to be way cheaper. So things like that will have to be cut, because of this cost of living, which
yeah,
is a shame.
it is, and I don't know if you're one of those people who, because certain people have this viewpoint of I have to be able to go out twice a week, or I have to be able to eat out so many times a month. I have to be able to do this. Are you one of those people who, obviously heating is a big no-no, you're not going to cut that off? Are you one of
Yeah.
those people who can say, do you know what, I'm going to almost not enjoy the things I normally like to enjoy for this? Or I don't know how do you maneuver in this
Uh,
type of situation?
Okay. Well, in terms of eating out in London, the
Yep.
reason why people eat out and go coffee shop is for mental health reasons. It's not because of the coffee. We can make coffee at home. We do have the best coffee at home. A lot of us are from Caribbean background, African backgrounds. We get, the roasted coffee, but it's not the point. The whole point of going out to drink coffee or eat out is to socialize
Yep.
because
Yep.
we live in such, what's the word? We live in individual type of life that we need to go places to socialize. That's the reason why. And, to cut back on that is going to affect people's mental health here in this big city. Because you can't just be stuck at home, boring.
No, you raise a good point, because I know that was one of the big things that in our workplace we talked about, how being cooped up in a home has caused a lot of people mental issues, which is why they go out for coffee, they go out for
Yeah.
um, drinks, and they do that because, yeah, you're right, it's a mental break. So I know,
Hmm.
uh, yeah, I do things like I'll make sure I take a walk or something like that to get some fresh air, something like that to get myself out, or just hang around people, or a dinner here, go to here if possible. They're the kind of things to make sure that you just back in the land of the living. So that's
Yeah, and
interesting. That's,
you raised a very important question. Those that are a couple are way better off. That is 100% right. That
yes.
is correct. But our generation have been told, especially men, the single life is the best life. They've been sold that fake lie, and now they will suffer. Got to be honest, they're the ones that are going to suffer because of it's expensive being single.
No, it is expensive being single. I mean, even something as simple as, for example, council tax. If you're a
Yeah,
couple, um, you get a single person's discount in
yeah.
council tax, but it's only 25% off. If you're a couple, technically it's better off being a couple than it is being single and getting the discount. It's something stupid like that, where you can, obviously depends on what you are. If you believe in the man paying for everything, obviously that.
Even work, things like they just expect single people to cover everybody else's shift.
That's
It's
true.
annoying.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think with the high cost of living, it just makes sense to be in a couple, but a normal person, not someone crazy. So, but the problem is a lot of people have got used to the single life, so it's very hard for them. The more you've been single for many, many years, it's going to be very hard to live with somebody,
Oh, 100%, 100% true.
men and women.
Yeah,
So
because you like that freedom, and this is it. You don't want to give it up. Some of
exactly. So they'll continue living that single life, and then they're the ones that are you know, they don't have somebody else to support, fall on their back. If anything happens, they're stuck on their own. And like you said, there's high homelessness.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it's not being single makes you vulnerable. So you have to always it would be good if people had like a community of like single friends and stuff like that, because you do need people, kind of, and especially our community, like the Black community. Um, you need to keep up with your network and things like that. And unfortunately, men are quite vulnerable. They don't know this, but they are. Um,
Well, the thing is,
for anything,
I always assume men are more vulnerable because of two reasons. One of them is because we're more, again, we be lone wolves. We'll probably just we'll do what we need to do, and if we end up homeless or die, it is what it is. And we don't need to have those support networks. Like women will tend to have, they're more social creatures that way, where they want probably more social networks, where guys, truth be told, we're not really about that life of social networks, except for if it comes to having some drinks or going out football or something like that. It's not really like that. So yeah, probably right, but
women
yeah.
don't keep in touch with their families as much. They need to. They need to be in touch with their families. Their sisters need to be in their life, but I've seen this whole new gender war, and it's not good for our community. And
Nah.
we need to go back. This whole interracial thing as well hasn't helped. Hasn't I don't think it's helped them, because they're not from that community. So if anything happens, they're vulnerable. So
You raise a point. I obviously don't want to get into that topic, but I suppose culturally, then I suppose for us as a people, then it's it's beneficial then, that because our community really now it's not what it used to be, clearly. And
yeah,
like
but
you said,
because also, like, if they're also suffering with the Black community because they've got so many things against them, it's actually made them closer as well. I think it's
yeah.
going to make them a lot more closer to each other, and they need to rely on each other, because things are not very secure. They haven't been for 10 years straight. It's just been terrible. The policies in place have just taken a toll on our community. We were way more powerful 10 years ago, even 20 years ago. Now, we're insignificant. Others can see that we've been targeted. So we just have nobody else but each other to rely on these days, and we need to be a lot more stronger, and not, because of our situation, it's either repatriation or fight back.
On that note, because I did sort of talk about potentially repatriation, because again, cost of living is cheaper over there. Obviously, there's definitely issues over in places like the continent and whatnot. So, what are your thoughts on that? Have you thought about just in regards to cost of living, just bunning it and leaving? What's your thoughts on
So
that?
if things are not great for our generation, my generation, your generation, I take it you're a millennial. Yeah, you
Yes,
sound like a
yes.
millennial. Things aren't that great. Our generation have gone off to the continent because the past decade they were getting so many setbacks, so much. Um, it was a lot harder for them, so they moved because cost of living was too high for them anyway, and they're doing really well. Places like Africa, Caribbean, they they've actually excelled. So if it's bad for us, it's not going to be great for our kids. It's common sense. It's not. So I think it would be wise not to burn your bridges wherever it is you're from. And we're quite lucky in that sense that we have those connections. And in terms of moving outside London, I know you were talking about that. That is an option, but then we have those regions that are also economically hit, and there's a lot of racism. The schools are not that great. There's not much opportunities, but you moving up north and moving to these areas, historically, it's always immigrants that started up the economy. That's how it works.
No, yeah, I agree.
So,
Actually. Yeah.
we move out, we create a little economy, but the people that live there, they won't like it that you'd be moving there. But the town hall and the council members, they would love it, because you're going to be starting a little economy. You're going to start making it attractive, and then everybody will move in, and then
Well,
you get pushed out, just like London.
yeah.
So we're not getting any benefit, to be honest. We're just like hamsters in a wheel. You know, we just get moved around, and when do we as well black people say enough is enough? We're not going to do this no more.
And I think it comes back to what you were saying before. We're just not, as a unit, strong enough. Because if we were strong enough, then we would do the pushing out. So we will be the
Look
one.
at Manchester. Manchester had a strong black community.
Yeah, it did. Even
Whole roads,
Liverpool and
whole
stuff.
70s, they bulldozed it with wrecking balls. They
Yeah.
called it a ghetto and bulldozed their community. They had the most radical black community, okay, in Manchester, and they just got rid of their community. And this is the system because I've studied Black British history.
Mm.
You know, right now Birmingham has a huge black community, massive.
Yeah.
But they're helping. It's them that is making that city stand. But there'll be a time when they push them out as well, or wreck it and let others move in. But so we always have to have a plan B. Do you know what I mean?
No, I actually agree. I agree. And again, I see, if I compare ourselves to South Asians, because South Asians, I'm trying to think, have they even been pushed out in a lot of these communities that they've been? They're in places like up in Yorkshire, so
Yeah.
Rotherham, Sheffield, they're in Leicester. If you ever go to Leicester, I'm telling
Yeah.
you will
Heavy,
see
heavy community. Yeah.
heavy. It's not too far from where I'm at, but you go to Leicester and they've really made a place. If you go to the city centre, it's like Asian capital in the city centre, and outskirts, white people.
Mm-hmm.
White people have been pushed out, but the Asians, they've got a whole strip of shops and stores, and it looks really good. But you know, it is what it is. But you know what I mean? It's like we seem to be the ones at most at risk, even when it comes to gentrification in London. A lot of black people
Yeah.
moving out, isn't it? Because they've been forced out.
We've been ignored. We've been silenced as if we don't exist, even though we are quite a large community. We've been purposely, you know, just
Oh, Drew, you've kind of broke up. Are you still talking?
boss. Like he's left us at the mercy of the developers. He hates us. He's so fake. So he's working hand in hand with them. But you know, we're still here. We're still fighting. Because they know that historically London's always had black people from the times of the Romans. Yeah, it's always been like that.
Sorry, Drina, you keep cutting in and out. Sorry, I don't know if you're speaking now. You sort
In
of cutting in.
hundreds of years. Our history on this island, we're always building up and we're being erased, moved around, started again. Oh, you just came in the 50s. You know, lies. You know, there's places in London, in where is it? East London, Stepney, around that region. This was during like 1800s. That was a whole road full of Caribbeans, black people.
Yeah.
Racists at the time, imagine in 1800s, burnt down their buildings. Same in Sheffield, Sheffield. Same in Nottingham riots, Manchester riots, Cardiff riots. So when you say let's go move outside, the same riots are going to happen again. Like it's happened before, you know. So
But I suppose what I'll say then is, for example, because things are meant to be a bit cheaper, is it because again, like London, people get pushed out all the time, whereas in other areas it's not so much. Like we're in Notts where I'm in, a lot of black people are still in a kind of the same areas that they've been before for a long time.
yeah,
The gentrification is nowhere near on that level. So what you can do is build up your wealth a lot better. Not great, because there are issues in Notts which you're not gonna like, but it's a bit better in that respect. So I think that's probably
it's true. Yeah, it's a lot slower. But
yeah.
Manchester definitely, Moss Side has been gentrified.
Yeah,
It's been gentrified the hell.
Yeah.
That was a black area. Now it's been marketed as this Hong Kong style blocks that are being sold abroad. So it will continue the rest of. I mean, like you said, it may be slower in those regions, but eventually the same system will happen again. And so our money, our influence, everything just disappears until another fresh bunch of African immigrants come, like they've always done for thousands of years.
Yeah.
So, you know, I sometimes I think, you know, investing in property, what's the point? Keep the money, take it with you back home, invest there.
Well,
It's just gonna.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? That's the thing. Is that what you're saying is what you're looking to do then? Are you like, I
Yeah,
forget about this, I'm not worried about it. I'm just gonna, because again, I heard a story where again, loads of people have got similar stories where they've lost so much money investing back in a continent because the regulations aren't the same. I know there's different nations and there's different things, but like Gambia, places like that where they've completely just been ripped off because it's
yeah. I mean, that can happen, especially in those countries where they know you don't know the law.
yeah, yeah,
You stupidly trust your relatives, because a lot of our people, we just give money to an uncle. Uncle spends it. Who
yeah,
that's the problem, because they're busy working abroad in the diaspora, and then you have these people just either sell your house, and which is unfortunate. You need to have somebody trustworthy, like a brother or a lawyer, or you need to go back and forth. But our millennials, the ones that couldn't get jobs here after the recession, they went to Africa. They're doing very well. Um, but they went because they had no choice. There was nothing here for them to do.
right.
They couldn't get in on the housing ladder, but they've managed to make something of themselves. They went at the right time. Um, so I don't know. I think the options are even places like Belize. It doesn't have to be Africa. It can be the Caribbean, Panama, those regions, Costa Rica, anywhere where they're a lot more friendlier for Black people. Mexico, even Mexico.
Mexico, really? Okay.
Yeah, yeah. There a lot of African Americans have moved to Mexico, South America, those regions. Um, Africa is not, unless you have a heritage in that region, unless you have a heritage, is again, that's quite a tough place as well, because like you said, you could be scammed,
Yep.
especially when they know you're Western. Oh my God. I mean, there's this poor guy I know who went to Uganda. He's a Caribbean guy, and unfortunately he got shot,
Oh, no.
which is very tragic. But he was in a nightclub, and you just look like a proper diaspora Westerner, and then if you get into an argument with the policeman, they'll be jealous of you. You come from the West, and they're going to be like, "Who do you think you are?" And the poor
Yeah.
guy got shot, which is very, very tragic. I knew him from childhood. So you just have to be careful when you go to these regions.
No, yeah, no, you're right. And even when you go into the Caribbean, I know there's certain places where you're just going to be kind of under more of attack because they think you must think you're better than me, or you must
Yeah,
think
yeah,
this.
you can't, and that's the problem with us in the West, especially with the men. You have to be careful when you go to these regions. Don't show off, don't order people around and stuff. They can kill you.
No, no, I agree. And this is one of the things I was basically just dress appropriately. Don't try and stand out. You try and go there thinking that you're something because you got a little bit of money because it travels well. But no, 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 no. You have to try and blend in because you're gonna stand out anyway. So you need to blend in. So, but that's what I've always noticed. And it's a case where I think a lot of us, I'll be honest with it, this is me being kind of a typical maybe Western and Brit. But when I go to these nations, like, is there going to be Tesco Express? Is there going to be this? Is there going to be Amazon Prime to deliver me from next day delivery? Is there going to be that? There's a lot of things which I'm going to have to try and culturally acquiesce to, which are a lot of us ready for, or maybe we have to be forced to do it. I don't know. That's something I've definitely noticed. Um, in which I'm a bit guilty of some of these things, just because yeah, I'm just institutionalized. But yeah, I don't know how you feel about that kind of stuff. Do you think we're culturally set to be able to do that kind of stuff? Oh no, Drina, she's gone. She's gone. She's gone. But yeah, no, I mean, this is the thing as well when it comes to moving back to certain nations, which again, it's all about the lifestyle, which you don't have to deal with it, aren't you? Let's be honest. Regardless of what country you go to, especially if there's a language barrier, that's another thing where it's just like, yeah, it's mad crazy. And if you don't have family there as well, it's also another bit of a non-starter. So um, yeah, it's mad. It's mad. One thing I'll say on this though, because I was looking at the chat, and I hear what you're saying. I think ultimately I do agree with you in regards to why we obsess, why people like us or not. I think it's just about whether the environment's going to be hostile. I think that's probably the way how I'd put it. If I just be a bit, just if I just offer kind of a different viewpoint, I think it's just a case of saying if it's going to be hostile enough where we can't just get our heads down and do what we need to do, or is it going to be a situation where it's not going to be hostile? So whether we're being liked or not, I agree with you. Yeah, at the end of the day, screw them. They're not going to like us. If they don't, who cares? But sometimes there are environments which, yeah, is it going to be hostile enough? Because most of us, let's be honest, when we go to places, we're going to want to work for other people. Most of us aren't going there to set up our own businesses, if I'll be honest with you. So if we were setting up our own businesses, again, this is why I always compare ourselves to South Asians. When they go to like places, they will set up industries themselves. So if we can do that in the main, no issues. But a lot of us are going to want to work for these people. So we're just trying to look at, least hostile environments as possible. But I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. So I don't, I take what you're saying as for sure, for sure. But yeah. And yeah, look, listen. I ain't even saying that's the case. There's a lot of historically, there's been, and it still is, a lot of black people in Manchester. So, um, again, Moss Side was a classic example of where a lot of us were situated, which had a lot of riots. So I know that good and well. So for sure, for sure. Links in chat, people. If not, I'll definitely shut the stream out in a bit though. But this is kind of where I wanted to get with the stream, where a lot of things where you just have to, we're gonna have to juggle this year, I suppose, but just in general, it just opens up the question about what's our next moves, where do we go to, how do we move, how do we focus ourselves as a unit to make sure that we aren't hit like this in regards to, because we're all going to get hit, but how do we make sure that we can at least prevent increasing homelessness, increasing going to the food banks, because again, food banks is at its all-time high. I'm sorry, man, but this is me personally. Next general election comes up, I'm not voting for these people. I'm just not. So I don't know what your political background is, your viewpoint is. That's on you. I'm not going to sway you anyway. All I'm going to say is what I'm going to do. I'm not voting for these people next general election. I've seen enough of them over the years in which people try and cape for them. People try and say, well, if Labour are doing this, if Labour are in there, look, Labour aren't in here. Conservatives are in here. And I know what Conservatives have done. And regardless of what Labour said they were going to do, we know what Conservatives have done. And so far, what their track record has been, I'm good. I think I'm ready for a change. Because at the end of the day, if there's no change, they're going to do the exact same thing they've been doing all the way around. Tell you that they're going to be conservative, but at the end of the day, they're nowhere near conservative. A lot of these policies are not quote unquote conservative policies. They're just not. And we're paying the price for it. We are paying the absolute price. So it's it's crazy. So again, I'm not against anyone voting for conservatives. I did at one point, so I'm not going to say that. But I'm like, no chance. There's no chance. In my opinion, you can vote for conservatives for how long has it been now? They've been in power since 2010. So at 12 years, folks. 12 years. That's a hell of a long time. And Boris Johnson, the less said about that guy, the better. But this is the thing about politics as well. The people who are running the country, the people who are making these laws, a lot of times they don't reflect the society that they live in, even at their earlier years. If you listen to their stories, and again, I can't hate on them. It's not their fault. You're born in a situation, you can't control it. But I'm telling you, some of these people have not worked a day in their life. I'm telling you, they're just people who go to charity events. They're people who study these courses, which you have to be rich to study. We know courses you have to be rich to study. We know what they are. And they study those courses because they was able to get, a gap year or do this kind of crap. And then there it is, shunted in these positions because they know so-and-so. Their families are friends with this. They go to this particular school, which looks good on their CV because they've got the finances to do so. All these things are just how it works. It's just like, bro. So that's why politics just annoys me the most when it comes to here. And this is unfortunately who are making our policies, making our laws. And but yeah, again, what can I say? But yeah, I ain't voting for conservatives next turn around. I've just I've had enough. I've really had enough of situations like that. What I'm gonna do right now, people, please make sure that you like the stream, share, subscribe if you are new. I'm definitely gonna end the stream. Thank you all for joining today. It's been good. I just wanted to get this topic out just for everyone. I'm not gonna keep it too long. It's 10:02 right now, so I appreciate everyone's gonna wind down to go to bed. But yeah, if anyone wants to come on, I'll leave it open for the next sort of 5 minutes. But if not, I'll just wind down by saying I hope everyone's I hope everyone's winter is coming, people. So I hope everyone's batting their hatches down. They got what they need to get to, or if they're able to increase their earnings, by all means, they're the tricks, they're the keys. So by all means, that's exactly what needs to take place. So yeah. Yeah, controversial but true. I mean, I will say it's been on that for I don't know, it's been on that for a while now. when I look at the numbers, the stats about the Caribbean communities, and I think Africans will be going the same way once they've been here for a few more years. Looking at stats, when I look at like education, jobs, um, representation, where we are represented, all these things are just, and obviously complexion, all these kind of other things. It's caused a divide, and this is one of the reasons why I think we as a group are more, as Doreen was saying, more susceptible to changes so quickly, because we're not together as a unit. And when we're not together as a unit, then anyone can come in and basically, what do we call it, break up the thing. So that's exactly what takes place. And yeah, if you're doing reverse wind rush, I don't even blame you. Don't even blame you. And this is kind of where I'm at a little bit in my stage of life, where I'm like, getting older, I'm feeling the cold a lot more. That's another thing. So I'm like, I might need to go to a warm place. I'm telling you. So yeah, that's definitely something on my on my to think list about where I'm going to be in the next sort of few years. Because I'm like, yeah, things are changing, so it's all good. Well, it's got a lot of opportunities which are presented itself. So I'm like, let's see if I can maximize it. But you know, we are where we are. We are where we are. But yeah, what I'm gonna do now, I'm gonna definitely shut down the stream. Thank you everyone for joining. Appreciate everyone. If you listen on the playback, thanks again. Please make sure you like, share the stream, subscribe if you are new. Thursday now. So Thursday got a nice live stream with Jesse, in which we're going to talk about I suppose autism, Asperger's, but kind of neurodiversity. That's the new buzzword that's going around these days. It's a word which I don't know whether we talk about enough in regards to this kind of things, or whether it's, well, we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about it with Jesse. He's been very open about his situation. You've definitely seen him if you've been on this channel. You've seen who Jesse is. He regularly he frequents the panel. So yeah, just gonna have a little talk with Jesse, see what he's saying. So please make sure that you can tune in on Thursday, 7:30. You know what time it is. So yeah, appreciate everyone for coming on. And yeah, I mean, wow. That old part, I don't know about that old part, but you know, I put it down to, you know, my new routine, of getting, you know, in better shape. It's feeding everything now. So that's what I put it down to. That's all I'm going to say to that. But yeah, but no, cool. Thanks everyone for joining. Please make sure you come on Thursday. Until next time, we're out of here.